on mute here? Hi, everybody. It's Rob Astorino. I will be back with you real shortly. We're just getting more of your friends and neighbors who are picking up the phone and hopping on with us. So just hang on for a little bit, and I'll be right with you. So thanks for joining me. I'm Rob Astorino. I'm running for governor, as you've probably heard. Maybe some of you have not, and if you haven't, I'm glad to talk to you for the first time. I am the Westchester County Executive and got elected in 2009 in a very Democratic county. So I've been able to work across party lines and do what people thought could not be done, and that was get elected in Westchester. And there's a lot to talk about tonight. I want really to get your feedback. That's really what I'd love to do, is to take any question that you have on any issue. It could be a Long Island or Staten Island-based issue, but specifically it could be a more overarching thing that affects everybody, like taxes in the state or education, Common Core we can talk about, a whole host of issues. So whatever it is that you want to talk about, I'm game. We can even talk about the Jets and Giants if you want. You dial 0 if you want to ask a question. Just press 0, and we'll be able to answer anything that it is that you want to talk about. Also, of course, you can always go on Facebook and Twitter, follow me. You can always have an interactive conversation over the next couple of days. Go to our website, robastorino.com, and that'll be another way where we could communicate. But anyway, I have a question, too. We want to take a little survey here and, keep you, getting your opinions is going to be really important to me. So the first question I want to ask you, and then I want to tell you about this state that we're living in, which unfortunately has way too many people leaving. The first question is, do you feel that you or your family's life has improved under Governor Cuomo? If you feel that it has, press 1 for yes. If you feel it has not, in any significant way, then press 2 for no, and we'll tabulate those responses later. It's all anonymous, so don't worry about it, and it's just more curiosity. So I'm running for governor because I feel this state's going in the wrong direction, and really badly. We are asking the same question no matter where I am. I've been in Nassau and Suffolk and Staten Island today, and I ask this very same simple question to everybody. As a state, are we winning or are we losing under this governor? Just like in sports or in business or in life, you're either moving ahead or you're falling back, right? You're winning or losing. So what do you think? As a state, are we winning or losing? And I'm telling you that under all objective standards, I think this state is losing badly. We have the highest taxes in America. We have the worst business climate. We have the worst economic outlook. We have a state that is the worst to do small business in. We, unfortunately, according to the AARP, it's the worst state to retire in. And they just came out with a survey 2 days ago. And this is incredible. 60% of those that are 50 and over that live in New York say that it is likely or somewhat likely that they're going to leave New York soon. That is an incredible amount of people. We've also, unfortunately, have the most corruption out of any state in America. And as you may or may not know, Andrew Cuomo is under investigation by the federal government, federal prosecutors, for his role in the Moreland Commission scandal. He's being investigated for corruption charges and those kind of things. So if anyone doubts this, the proof is that we've had 400,000 of your neighbors or family members leave this state in the last 3 years. 400,000 New Yorkers. And I kind of joke with people. I say, living in New York shouldn't be like a prison sentence where you just count the days away until you can leave. And unfortunately, that's how many people feel now living in New York. You feel trapped. You feel like you can't get your head above water. You're getting hit and smacked every day with new taxes and fees and nickel and dime to death on top of the highest taxes and property taxes and income taxes. My wife and I have 3 little kids. We have a son who's just started middle school. He's 6th grade. He's 11 years old. We have a daughter who is 9, and she's in 4th grade, and we have another daughter who just started kindergarten. And I can tell you, my wife and I are trying to put money away every month in a 529 for our kids, and we're, like many other middle-class families, trying to make it here in New York. But taxes keep going up, and a lot of our neighbors are already leaving, and I just don't see an opportunity in 15 or 20 years when our kids are at the age where they might be getting married or trying to find a job or a career where they're going to be able to stay in New York, or they'll just choose to do what others, and that's go to North Carolina or South Carolina or Texas or Florida or anywhere else where New Yorkers are fleeing to right now. So I want to have an interactive conversation with you, if you would. Again, if you have a question, just press 0 and ask your question, and I will answer it. I like to call this Ask Astorino because I've done this many times in Westchester with our residents. I had 25 town hall meetings in person, and we had 5 teletown hall meetings, and it's a great way to get great feedback. So don't hold back. Let me give it to me on any question that you have, and I'm going to answer it for you. Going back to the first question again, do you feel that you or your family's life has improved under Andrew Cuomo? Press 1 for yes, press 2 for no, and I'll give you the results of that. So why don't we take a couple questions. Doesn't matter where on Long Island you are, if you're in Suffolk or Nassau, or where on Staten Island you are. I'd like to hear it. I know Jason is in Suffolk County, and Jason has a question about our plan to cut taxes. Now, Jason, going to pop up on this, or should I just ask the question? That's your question from Jason, right? All right. So good question, Jason. Now, I can tell you that in Westchester, we cut taxes. I ran in 2009 because the previous administration had increased property taxes 17% in 5 years. They increased spending 25% in those 5 years, and it was just outrageous. It was just driving everybody out. And I ran on a pretty simple platform. We were going to clean up the mess, clean up the corruption. We were going to cut property taxes, and we were going to live within our means, and that's what we did. And you there, Jason?
Yeah, no, I'm here.
I went ahead of you. I started answering your question, but
no, I'm very well aware, so I'm paying attention.
No, and so we cut the property tax levy in Westchester County, the county portion, which is what I'm responsible for, not school taxes or town taxes or village taxes. I don't control that, but the county portion of your tax bill in Westchester, at least, we cut it. We cut it more than any county in New York State. The budget when I walked in the door was $1.8 billion. We're at $1.7 billion. So we've actually lived within our means. We've found savings. And I believe very strongly we have to do that in New York across the board. Otherwise, people are going to get out of here.
And that was without cuts in services, too.
That's correct, because, now look, were there some reductions? Yeah, I mean, we had to make some tough choices. But we cut my own budget in the county executive's office and staff by 19%. I was leading the way. And we did find ways to do things better and smarter. That's what we have to do. But I think the biggest thing is we brought a healthy balance back. And this is a real critical thing that we have to do in New York. We're out of balance right now, okay? We're out of whack. We're spending too much. The privileged few and some special interests, they're gaining everything. They're getting all the breaks. And the average typical homeowner or property owner or New Yorker, I hate to say it, but you're getting screwed all the time. And that's why people are saying, I've had it, I'm leaving. Look at your energy costs on Long Island, they're through the roof. I mean, we have the highest utility rates, highest cable rates. You go down the list, and it's the worst. So services are really important, and what we have to do is find out and reach the happy medium. Not everyone's going to be happy, but what we can afford versus what we want. And those are two different things. But I'll tell you one thing we didn't do. We have 34 different departments in Westchester. We found savings in 33 of them, and the one biggie was the Department of Social Services. We found savings, but we actually put more money into the needy, and it got to them as opposed to all the overhead and the waste. So we got to be careful in every dollar we spend, and we got to find that balance so seniors can stay in their homes and middle-class families can stay in their homes and businesses can get started. So it's a balancing act. But I thank you, Jason. Anyone else have a question? You press 0 and then you ask a question, and I'd love to take it. George in Farmingdale. How are you, George? George?
Yes, hi, Rob.
How are you?
Good.
What's your question?
Well, I addressed it with this education, with this Common Core that seems to be shoved down our throats, that the government seems to know best. I mean, you didn't go the Common Core. Your parents didn't have Common Core. And I think we've able to get educated and earn a living. And all of a sudden, if you don't know Common Core, you don't know bupkis.
Well, let me. And for those just popping on the phone right now, I'm Rob Astorino. I'm running for governor, and this is a teletown hall meeting. If you have a question, you press 0, and you can ask a question. It could be about anything, anything you want. So George had a good question. It's about Common Core. Let me tell you about Common Core and why I'm absolutely opposed to Common Core. As I said, just a minute or two ago, I'm a parent, first and foremost. My wife and I have 3 kids. I'm a product of public schools. I was born and raised in Westchester, went to public schools. I served on the school board in my town, on my school district. My wife is a special education teacher. And so public schools mean very much to me, mean a lot to me. This state, New York, is spending more on public education, more per pupil than any state in America, and we are in the middle of the pack in results. So the education system needs improvement. There's not a question about this. And the argument thrown out by people who are for Common Core, whether they know much about it or not, is if you're not in favor of Common Core, then you're not in favor of elevating standards. You want dumb kids. That's ridiculous. In fact, that's only thrown out to mute any argument against or have a conversation. Here's why I'm opposed to Common Core. Number one, it was born out of a complete and utter experiment, and it is. It's a national experiment on education. It's never been tested. They have no idea how the results are going to be. This came out of the Bill Gates Foundation. It was developed by basically non-teachers. There were very few K through 12 teachers that were involved in writing the standards. You also have now the federal government, bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., basically dictating what's going to be taught in classrooms in New York, as opposed to our local parents, educators, school boards deciding, along with our state leaders, what we should be learning. Now, we need better education in New York. I am for and want and will make sure we have higher standards. But Common Core is not the way to go. And I was just at my parent-teacher night last night, back-to-school night at the middle school where my son goes. And it was funny because the math teacher said, she's in the second year as a teacher. She said, I was trained in Common Core, and just so you know, with Common Core, your kids can get the answer wrong, but still get credit for it. And I said, well, if 2 + 2 = 4, but they don't get the right answer, how do they get credit for it? Because if they explain how they got there and rationalize, etc., we're getting away from the basics in this country, and that's why we're losing ground. I am running on a ballot called Stop Common Core. That's how much I'm opposed to Common Core I am. And I would go back to what the Board of Regents was trying to do in 2008, 9, and 10. They were working on something that's now referred to as the lost standards, working on elevating standards, making a more rigorous curriculum, de-emphasizing some of the testing, and getting decision-making back to the local schools. I think that's important. You also have a governor who has drastically and dramatically cut education aid. So your taxes have to go up to pay for the loss in aid, state aid, and he has not given local schools the tools to overcome that, which is what you have to do. If you're going to cut aid, you got to give them the tools to figure out how to control expenses, because Albany hasn't cut expenses. In fact, they've made more demands on each school district with more unfunded mandates. That's a recipe for disaster. I support the property tax cap, but Governor Cuomo said when it was passed that it was part of the equation. Property tax cap and mandate relief. He lied to us. We haven't gotten any of that. So that's one thing that needs to be fixed. I appreciate your question. Again, if anyone has a question, it's press 0 and ask your question. I'm Rob Astorino, running for governor. Going to have this two-way conversation with you. Thank you very much for taking time and joining me. Let's go to Ann in West Islip. Hi, Ann.
Hey there, Rob. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. I have two questions. My first question is, obviously in Suffolk County, you're not a name that I'm familiar with. I'd like you to qualify yourself, some of your qualifications to be governor in our state.
Sure. Thank you, first of all, for actually taking the time to listen and to ask me a question. I appreciate that. I ask for you and others to go to robastorino.com. My whole biography is there, my background, what I stand for, what I will do, my education plan, my ethics plan, our jobs plan, our tax plan is coming out shortly. But just in a nutshell, my whole life has been in the private sector for the most part. I was in radio and TV. I was hired by Disney to launch ESPN Radio, which I hope people listen to in New York. And then I went to Sirius XM satellite radio. I hosted a radio show with Cardinal Dolan. He and I did that together. Before that, Cardinal Egan. And I was not only on the air, but also in management. I was then elected for part-time jobs. I started on the school board. I served my town on the town council, and I was on the county board in Westchester for a term. So I have sort of that unique experience of some government jobs in regard to elected office, but I've never forgotten that it's the private sector and the public that has to pay the freight. So my life hasn't been skewed by government does it all, and the more you tax, the better it is. That's the opposite of what I believe in. And as county executive in Westchester now, it's 1 million people. It's very similar, Westchester, to Nassau and Suffolk. In many ways, it's very similar to Staten Island as well, because Staten Island is a lot of homes. People own their homes and care about their neighborhoods, care about taxes. So in Westchester, we have actually cut the property tax levy. I've now had 4 budgets. The 5th is coming soon, where we will not raise taxes in 5 years. In fact, I lowered taxes in Westchester. 30,000 private sector jobs were created because I worked with the business community and small businesses. We actually reduced the size of the budget in Westchester. You tell me where in New York there's a municipal or county budget that is less today than it was 4 years ago. Certainly not the case in New York State. Andrew Cuomo has raised taxes. He has heaped billions and billions in more debt and more spending that all has to be paid for by us. So it's just a sharp difference in my philosophy in governing than what Andrew Cuomo was saying. One of the things that you probably have seen every day on every channel, every minute, are these Startup New York ads. And let me just talk to you about these Startup New York ads for a quick second. Andrew Cuomo has spent $250 million, 250 million tax dollars, our money, promoting really a thinly disguised political campaign for himself to pretend that all is well in New York. Everything is going so smoothly. Things are great. We're open for business. They're flooding into New York to open up a business and to live here. Do you really think that's true? It's not. Forest Labs just announced they're closing in Long Island. You have Adecco that is leaving. Entenmann's is leaving. You go on and on and on, and people are escaping New York. And it should not have to be that way. I mentioned earlier, 400,000 New Yorkers have left this state under Andrew Cuomo's watch. 400,000 New Yorkers, with many, many more ready to leave. And it does not have to be that way. We should not settle for a state that ranks at the bottom of all the important lists in this country. New York is not open for business. It's chasing away our own businesses and our own people, and that's got to come to an end. If New York were truly open for business and we're doing well and everyone's life was really good, taxes were about right, cost of living was good, would 400,000 New Yorkers have left? No. And then where are they going? They're going to places we used to go to for a vacation, or maybe some snowbirds would go and stay the winter, but you'd always come home. Now, you're putting a North Carolina license plate on your car or a Florida license plate on your car, and you're coming back to visit the old neighborhood and your family because you've moved. That's what's happening in record numbers. We are now tied with Florida in population, yet Florida has no income taxes. It has half the debt we have. It has half of the budget we have. We spend more on Medicaid in New York State than in real dollars than Florida, Texas, and Pennsylvania combined. We are just driving our own citizens away, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I hope those are some of my qualifications. You learned what I did in Westchester and my private sector job. I guess my biggest qualification is I think I'm just like you. My wife and I have 3 kids. We live in this state. We love this state. We live in a regular neighborhood, and I got on the train for 8 years, got up early, took Metro North into New York City to work, and I just got so fed up with the direction of Westchester that I decided to run for county executive. And many Democrats joined the cause. We had about 30% of the Democratic support, which is phenomenal, and they stuck with me in my reelection, and that's what I'm most proud of. And we were able to get a lot of things done in Westchester. So I thank you for the question, Ann. Press 0 if you want to ask me a question. I'm Rob Astorino. Jennifer from Huntington. How are you, Jennifer?
Oh, hello, Mr. Astorino. How are you? My question was that we are one of the 3 states in the United States that we allow legal cross-endorsements of political parties, which limits the voters' choices at the ballot to either A or B. What will you do to change election laws in regards to cross-endorsements and term limits that is breeding the current level of political corruption in New York?
Great question, Jennifer. Thank you. My ethics plan that came out about 2 weeks, actually, before the whole New York Times broke the Moreland Commission scandal that has ensnarled the governor, and it's why he's under federal investigation right now. I never imagined that it would be as important as it is today. I mean, I knew how important this state is just going down the tubes, and the corruption is just at an all-time high. And as I said earlier, too, the corruption is not just a couple of politicians going off in handcuffs. The corruption has to be paid for, and Jennifer and everyone else, you're paying for it because the deals, the slimy deals they cut for themselves and their friends have to be paid for, and that's why taxes go up, it's why businesses leave, and that's the bill that we have to pay. I put at part of my plan, the number one thing in my plan is term limits. I think, and we did this in Westchester when I got into office, we put term limits in. County executive has term limits. Legislators have term limits. I feel very strongly that in Albany, we need term limits. And legislators should serve 8 years and move on up or move out. And the same thing with the governor and the elected officials. Right now, we've got legislators, right, wrong, or indifferent, who are there forever. And it doesn't mean they're bad. Some of them are bad. Some of them are corrupt. And some of them should go to jail. It doesn't mean all of them are bad. But I do think that fresh blood, new ideas from both parties, that's a good thing. Also, if you are convicted of a felony on corruption, you should lose your pension if you're an elected official. There's a lot of others. There's a 10-point plan in there. I hope you go to robastorino.com, look it up. You go on Facebook and Twitter as well to follow us because we're putting out some real substance on how to move this state forward, and hopefully people will pay attention. I think people are now because people are getting fed up with what's going on in this state. So let me ask you another question again. If you have a question for me, press 0. But our little poll here, and it's totally anonymous, so just press 1 or 2. Do you feel that you or your family's life has improved under Governor Cuomo? Press 1 if it's yes, press 2 if it's no. Also, have you heard of the Moreland Commission scandal that resulted in Governor Cuomo being under investigation? No, I can't do that one right now?
No, you can do that one.
I can do that. Oh, I can only do one at a time. I'm sorry. All right, so press 1 if you think that you or your family's life has improved under Andrew Cuomo, or press 2 if you do not think it has. And then I'll ask another question a little later. All right, let's get some more questions in here. Steve from Suffolk County. Steve, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm good, Steve. Thanks for chiming in. What's your question?
I'd like to know how you feel about the preservation of the Second Amendment and Governor Cuomo's SAFE Act.
Sheriff Chris Moss, who is my running mate, he is the sheriff of Chemung County, which is upstate in the southern tier. He is the president of the New York State Sheriff's Association. He's been in law enforcement his whole life. The SAFE Act has done nothing to make any of us safer. And let me explain what the SAFE Act is for those of you who don't remember or don't know. The SAFE Act was Governor Cuomo's knee-jerk reaction to what happened in Newtown, Connecticut. And living in Westchester, we are very close to Fairfield County and to Newtown. So it was very emotional for me, as it was for anybody, certainly parents with children that age, and my kids are that age. Andrew Cuomo rushed through a law. Nobody read it. There was no public comment on it, no press scrutiny. It was done in the middle of the night. It had to be amended many times. It was found partially unconstitutional by a federal judge. And unfortunately, it turned legal, law-abiding citizens who own a gun and made them criminals literally overnight. And it is something that I have said I will repeal. I think it's a bad law. It does nothing to make us safer. And what we did in Westchester was what I would focus on. And we took our time. We really worked collaboratively. We worked with law enforcement, with our education system. We work with our nonprofits, our religious community, and the mental health community. And what we decided to focus on was the real issue, and that's the loopholes and the breakdown in the mental health system. And this is not to stigmatize, just the opposite. This is to get people help who need it. But it's also trying to identify and prevent these kind of tragedies. And we've identified a couple areas that are really working well. We're working with the Yonkers School District, Mount Vernon School District, to focus on absenteeism, chronic absenteeism. What the studies have found overwhelmingly is if a child is chronically absent from school for whatever reason, the likelihood that that child will graduate diminishes dramatically. The likelihood that that child will end up in a gang or on drugs or as a dropout increases dramatically. So there's a reason why kids should be in school, and this is one of them. The second thing is something called Youth Mental Health First Aid, and we were the first to adopt it countywide. And this is basically when a child or a young adult is in some ways screaming for help, talking about suicide or a violent act, a lot of times we as adults, we don't know how to handle it, so what do? We sort of turn the other way. And instead of turning the other way, this is educating parents, coaches, anyone that comes in contact with kids to basically confront the situation, to just tell the child, look, I care about you, obviously something's bothering you, and then turn it over to the right person, the mental health professionals. That's working well. I mean, we're working with people, and they're doing it. That's the comprehensive approach we took in Westchester. We didn't go after legal gun owners and make them into criminals or stigmatize gun owners or treat them like sex offenders. We actually went after the part of the problem that needs focusing on. So I hope that answers your question, Steve.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Anyone wants to ask me a question, press 0, and we'll get you on. I hope that people go to my website, robastorino.com. I hope you go on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, and that's the way I'm going to get some really good feedback. Okay, do you want me to ask this other question?
Oh, yeah. No.
All right, now I'm dying to ask this question. Have you heard of the Moreland Commission scandal that resulted in Governor Cuomo being under investigation by federal prosecutors for corruption? Yes, press 1. 2, press no. All right. Sean from Long Island. How are you, Sean?
Oh, I'm good, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
No problem. What's your question?
Rob, I have a couple questions for you, Rob, and you can just touch on them lightly. I am a school teacher. I did hear that your wife's a school teacher, too. And anytime I hear the word reform, I always think of the snake oil salesman, about 100 years ago and the things that they're suggested. And one of the things I think I heard, Rob, you mentioned you're a big fan of charter schools. Is that correct?
First of all, what do you teach?
I'm a special education teacher.
Okay, so like my wife. I am a supporter of charter schools. However, charter schools have come a long way, not always for the good, in what their original purpose was. Original purpose really was to have an opportunity in areas of our state that have severely failing schools and bad options for parents. This, in some circumstances, can give children and parents an option for a choice and a better school. So yes, I support charters. However, charters are not necessarily a good thing or needed in certain areas of the state. I would say probably Long Island, you probably don't need charters. You have pretty good schools. In the inner cities where schools are failing in the New York City public education system in some areas, charters are a good thing, are necessary, or at least an option. But charters also need to have scrutiny. Charters also need to have accountability. And what I learned along the way is that the state comptroller has no authority to audit charter schools. And that has to change too, because if they're getting tax dollars, then they should be responsible and also be audited so they're accountable. So I hope that answers your question, Sean.
It does, Rob. Just one quick question, and, again, maybe your wife might have mentioned it to you, too. Due process, tenure, and that kind of thing is under attack, and certainly in the charter schools in New York City. And what is your position on teachers having the ability to have due process? And in your position on tenure, what is your position on that?
There's no question about it that due process is absolutely important. I have said that I do support tenure, renewable tenure. I don't think anyone should have a job forever, 20 years, 20, 30 years with no accountability. So I absolutely support tenure, renewable tenure, but I also absolutely support
What does that mean, Rob, renewable tenure?
Well, look, everyone should be accountable, and that's one reason why I don't really love Common Core and the APPR, because no teacher was trained on it or ready for it, and yet they're being graded on it, and they could lose their job on it, and that's not fair. So I think there should be a portfolio approach. Children learn very differently. There are many kids in this state that can't take a test, but they could do great. They could do great in a career. And that's one of the things in my education plan where I have said we should go back to vocational training in our schools. We should give different diplomas. We should have science, technology, engineering, and math as an option. We should have vocational tech. When I went to my old middle school...
we have that, Rob. We have BOCES. BOCES is a fantastic
We're getting away from a lot of that, and we should also be able to give them a diploma for these. We should have foreign language instruction in the lower levels, not necessarily in high school. We should start them to build the foundation, and I speak Spanish, and let kids be able to do that on the lower levels. So I ask that you go to my education plan. Go to Rob Astorino. It's a 15-point plan. I want you to read it, and I'd love to have your feedback. Send me an email.
Sure. What is here?
All right. I want to get to a whole bunch. We got a whole bunch of more people on here that want to ask a question. Peggy. Peggy's from where? Peggy,
yes.
Where are you from, Peggy?
I'm from Westbury.
Okay, Westbury. You can see some good concerts there, huh?
Yes. My question, or my comment, really, is there have been a lot of political ads against you, citing all kinds of legal accusations. Yeah. And I would like you to really address this because it sounds very bad. They make you sound like a crook.
I'm glad you brought that up. I really appreciate it. Andrew Cuomo has spent $14 million so far on pure negative ads against me and all false. So I'm glad you asked this. There's only one candidate for governor out of the two of us that is under investigation by the federal government, federal prosecutors for corruption, and that's Andrew Cuomo as part of his Moreland Commission scandal. He is being investigated by U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara for his role in shutting down the Moreland Commission, pay-to-play scandals, pension scandals, obstruction of justice, witness tampering. This is Andrew Cuomo that is under investigation. Now, the ads that he has put up against me are completely false. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's funny. This is a civil lawsuit that was filed in Westchester against a couple hundred people, and it was by the same person that was being investigated by the Moreland Commission for pay-to-play scandals, pension scandals, that Andrew Cuomo protected and shut down the Moreland Commission. And by the way, the person who filed that lawsuit against us was a chairman of the Independence Party in Westchester, and Andrew Cuomo got the Independence Party line. You think there's a connection between him getting the Independence Party line and shutting down the corruption investigation against these people? That's what this is all about. It was about Andrew Cuomo protecting people. We are not under any criminal investigation whatsoever. Andrew Cuomo is, though. But I'm glad you asked that, Peggy. Thank you so much. Press 0 if you want to ask me a question. Go to robastorino.com. Go to my Facebook page. Follow me on Twitter. That's where we're going to get a conversation going, and you're going to understand exactly what's been going on. I'll ask you one more time. Have you heard of the Moreland? No? You want to ask the last one? Oh, the last one. Okay. Here's a question for you. Okay. Who do you plan to vote for governor in November? Me, Rob Astorino. Press 1. 2, Andrew Cuomo. Or 3, you're undecided at this point. Again, it's anonymous, so just do what you think or what you're planning to do. Me, number 1, Rob Astorino. 2, Andrew Cuomo. Or 3, undecided. Who are you going to vote for governor? All right, Ken. Ken from Lake Grove. How are you?
Yeah, hi, Rob. It's Ken. The question I have for you is related to HUD and what they've done to Westchester, Andrew Cuomo's old stamping grounds, and what's going to happen in Nassau County and Suffolk County with respect to those same issues where HUD is harassing Westchester. Are they about to do that to Nassau and Suffolk?
They are, and I thank you for asking it. Let me just give everybody a real quick rundown about Housing and Urban Development, the agency that Andrew Cuomo used to run. Westchester County was sued, and HUD came in 2009 and settled with my predecessor, former county executive Andrew Spano. Westchester has to build 750 units of low-income housing in 31 mainly white communities, and we have 7 years to do it. We have to spend over $51 million minimum, and if we don't meet certain benchmarks along the way, we get significantly fined. Now, I inherited this. My first day of office was the first day this took effect. We are in full compliance with the federal courts on this. We are ahead of schedule in building these units. We have over 400 of them under construction, and we are in full compliance. Along the way, HUD admitted that this is really not what this was about. This was about changing the world in their view. It was about building multifamily, high-density housing in any neighborhood and removing any restrictions in any zoning code in any community that would limit height and density and acreage and number of bedrooms, which of course would flood our school districts. That's what this is about. HUD tried to make us do things that were not in the two-party agreement, that were not in the settlement, and that's where I drew the line. And when the federal government, which just yesterday again accused more of our towns and villages and threatened them, when they want to come in and take away land use decisions that are strictly under the state constitution, under the authority of each community, HUD wants to have federal bureaucrats decide who lives where and what the zoning should be and what buildings should be built in what neighborhood. So if you live in a single-family residential neighborhood with quarter-acre zoning, let's say, like is much of Westchester and the neighborhood I live in too, HUD would say, no good. HUD would say there must be the opportunity to have government-subsidized housing in that neighborhood or high-density housing, and unless you take those restrictions away from that neighborhood and the zoning, you're not in compliance and we're going to come after you. That's the battle we're fighting in Westchester. They have filed a similar lawsuit in Nassau County and in the town of Oyster Bay. Suffolk County will be next. And this is what I am fighting steadfast against, the federal government dictating who lives where and what neighborhoods should look like. That is strictly the power of local governments to decide. Andrew Cuomo, who used to be the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under President Clinton, has not only not lifted a finger to help Westchester, but I think he's rooting for his whole buddies at HUD. And if it happens in Westchester, as it is, it's happening in Suffolk, Nassau now, it's going to happen in Suffolk, it's going to happen in Staten Island, it's going to happen everywhere in New York State. That's why I'm fighting. That's why the Wall Street Journal has written 4 editorials against this, in support of me, and I will continue to fight no matter what they throw at me, because this is certainly a matter of local control versus federal bureaucrats dictating. So I thank you for asking that question, Ken. I appreciate it. Again, who do you plan to vote for governor in November? Me, Rob Astorino, press 1. Andrew Cuomo, press 2. Or if you're unsure, you're undecided yet, press 3. It's all anonymous, but we're just kind of curious to see where you're thinking and what your head is at right now. Ask me any question, okay? Just press 0 and I'll get to it. Jordan from Roslyn. How are you, Jordan?
Good, Rob. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. When do we get to see you debate Cuomo on television?
Well, today we got a request from Channel 7 and Univision and the Daily News to do a joint debate. We're going to accept. Whether Andrew Cuomo accepts or not, that's up to him. I think he doesn't want to talk. He's gone like radio silent. He refuses to talk to the press, to the public. He refused to debate his primary opponent, who got 40%. 40% of Democrats voted against their incumbent governor. I mean, that is a huge rebuke. And it's because they're sick of the corruption, they're sick of the high taxes, they're sick of this state losing. And whether he'll accept a debate or not, I don't know. I'm ready. I've said let's debate on Long Island. Let's talk specifically about Long Island issues as well. Let's debate in New York City. Let's debate upstate so we can explain why 10 of the worst 20 U.S. cities for economic outlook are in New York. Why 400,000 New Yorkers have already left this state under Andrew Cuomo's watch. Why we have the highest taxes in America. Why we spend more on education in this state and we're in the middle of the pack in results. Why the corruption is rampant, and he's part of that now, the cesspool of corruption and under federal investigation. These are questions I want him to answer in a debate, and whether he'll accept it or not, I don't know, but I'm ready. I debated Zephyr Teachout, his primary opponent, twice last week on radio and on TV. So I hope he debates, because I'm ready. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Carol from North Massapequa, how are you?
Thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Thanks for asking me a question. What is it?
I'd like to know where in this universe that the president said we gained 200,000 new jobs, I think, in the month of July, when I've been out of work over 2 years May, and it's not like I had piddly jobs. I was the executive for the CFO for EHS, which is Episcopal Health Services. They ran the hospital over in Far Rockaway, and I worked at Grumman before that, so I've held very good jobs. I am limiting myself because I'm 60 and I'm not going to go into the city at my age, but all my children left. My children left, my grandbabies left, all out of high school. And I'm in the house that I grew up in 8 years at the risk of now losing it.
Yep.
So, where are these jobs that he says we gained all this and we're coming around and the economics going up? I'm in worse shape than ever.
Yep. First of all, Carol, I hope things get better for you. I plan on making them better for you. That's why I'm running, because you're not alone, and that's the problem. We've had a state that is just mired in almost in a recession for most of the state. Other than the island of Manhattan and a few select neighborhoods in Brooklyn, most people are struggling, and we're getting whacked left and right with more and more taxes. Unfortunately, Governor Cuomo has publicly stated that he will join with the Bill de Blasio agenda and the Working Families Party agenda of higher taxes and more regulation. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. The last thing we need for a state that is the highest taxed in America on an island, Staten or Nassau and Suffolk, that is highly, highly taxed, is more taxes. And I get it. I mean, that's why we cut property taxes in Westchester under my watch. That's why we have a lower budget, and that's why 30,000 new private sector jobs came. We really zeroed in on I know you said you were in the healthcare industry. We zeroed in on life science. And Grumman,
I also
okay.
worked at Grumman for 12 years. So, different industries. Brookhaven Lab, I was there for about 12 months. So, and I'm not the type of person. I've gone to every job fair. I've gone to the Nassau Works. I've gone to the Work Center, agencies, and all the interviews. And it's like a lot of them, honestly, one was kind enough to say, listen, you're really overqualified. I mean, a clerk. I don't care what you call me. You know what I'm saying? But no, they're afraid you're going to stay there 3 months and find something better. So I'm not even getting, anything. So, yeah.
And Carol, this is the exact problem right now because Governor Cuomo is spending $250 million, tax dollars, that should be put back either into our schools or to lower taxes or to create jobs. $250 million, including $37 million he swiped from Hurricane Sandy relief funds to put people back in their homes.
Absolutely dreadful, yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. And he has spent that to politicize a Startup New York campaign just to pretend that things are going better and really for political purposes. You're exactly right. And you know how many other people like you I've talked to around New York State, especially on Long Island and other places, who have said, where are these jobs? In fact, you look at the numbers, unfortunately, New York ranks almost dead last in job creation. We are well below the national average in job recovery. We're higher in unemployment rate. Our wages have decreased. You go on, and we are losing badly. And Andrew Cuomo has just sort of done what others have done. He's just simply raised taxes, nibble around the edges. It's all smoke and mirrors. And, Forest Labs would not have left Long Island. They're not closing up because things are good. Entenmann's would not have closed.
Right,
exactly.
And how do they say the unemployment rate went down? I don't mean to interrupt, but how do they say it went down when there's people that are no longer on unemployment but still don't have the job? So
that's the trick that they use. People dropping out of the workforce and looking for jobs, and so the unemployment rate goes down. It's just simply because people have given up. But there's more and more unemployment, really. Right. I think I read somewhere the real effective rate of unemployment's like well over 10% when you talk to people who are out of work. So hang in there, Carol. I hear you. It's why I'm running.
Thank you for taking my call.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Carol. Let's go to Ed in Lawrence. Ed, how are you?
How are you, Rob?
I'm good.
I'm a big fan. I actually work in Westchester, and I'm actually working with the company. We're looking to bring 150 jobs.
There you go. I love it. Thank you.
So we believe in what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I think you do have a solid shot this year, but we're just not hearing enough. And maybe it's because of the media, and obviously it's because of the governor's under-the-radar type of a campaign. What are you going to do?
Well, we have 55 days to go. You're going to start seeing our commercials real soon. And we are out and about. I've been to 61 of the 62 counties, many of them multiple times. And by the way, we're getting that 62nd county next week. But I've been on Long Island many, many times now. I'll be in Nassau and Suffolk more than maybe you'll want to see me, but I'm going to be there often, as well as Staten Island, where we work today, because people are hurting. People cannot keep up with the taxes, the arrows that they're getting left and right all over the place. And,
not only that, but the regular basic services. I mean, have you ridden the Bell Parkway lately?
Yeah. We pay the most in taxes in America, and we've got third world roads.
But they're not able to just, do regular governmental, things that have to be done.
Well,
they're not keeping up.
The state is fortunate in that they have reached settlements with some of the banking companies. The state is going to have a windfall of over $5 billion in various settlements. And I have said that that money should not just go to the general fund because it'll be blown away. It'll just go in the dark hole. They'll create new programs with it. They'll give goodies away to every group, and they're going to then have to raise that kind of money in taxes in the near future to keep up with those programs. I have said that money should go directly to one of our most urgent needs, and that's infrastructure. Our roads are falling apart. Our bridges are collapsing and falling apart. Our dams, they're all in urgent need. So let's take that $5 billion, not borrow it, not tax. Let's use that money right now to fix up what needs to be fixed up. And the added benefit of that, by the way, is people are going to go back to work. And I think that's what we should be doing, as opposed to throwing it down the black hole of the state budget so politicians can hand it out as goodies. So I thank you for looking to invest in Westchester. I really appreciate that. And thanks for asking me a question. So if you have a question for me, Rob Astorino, press 0. And also go to my website, robastorino.com. Go to Facebook, go to Twitter, and follow us. I mean, that's the way we're going to get the message out. And yes, we will be advertising very, very soon. Bruce, how are you, Bruce? Bruce, you there?
Yes, I am.
Where are you from, Bruce?
Old Brookville in Long Island.
Yep.
My question is that if you become governor, all of these things that you would like to do will require a certain amount of legislation. So you'll have opposing parties. And I would like to know, will you stick steadfastly to what you want to get done, or would you compromise to get something done?
I think you can be principled without compromising your principles, if you know what I mean. Here's what you can do.
No, I don't know. It would be a matter of you're either going to compromise.
When I went into Westchester as county executive, there were 13 Democrats and 4 Republicans. And yet, we were able to reduce the budget, cut taxes, and help the economy because we compromised. We both had our principles, but we met in the middle, and we worked collaboratively. And there's still a Democratic county legislature. We also worked with various community groups. I would meet often, I still do, every 2 months with the United Black Clergy, for instance. And, we walked through the budget. I explained the situation. They explained some of their concerns. And we met in the middle on a lot of issues that were of concern. And we do that with the nonprofits. And I'm proud of that because you're right. In order to get things done, I have to lead. But I also have to gather up enough votes so we can pass this kind of legislation. So I've worked in a bipartisan way in Westchester. I'm going to have no other way of governing because the mathematics are the state assembly is going to be Democrat. The state Senate, hopefully, in my view, will be Republican. So we have a balance. But either way, it's got to be compromised to get some things done. So I hope that answers your question, Bruce. Thanks for asking it, by the way.
Yes, it does answer it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. All right, we only have time for about 1 or 2 more questions. Stay on the line. You can leave a message. We'll get back to you. You could also shoot us an email again. You go to robastorino.com, Facebook, Twitter. We will answer all of your questions. Who do you plan on voting for? One more shot at it, okay? Who do you plan on voting for governor? Me, Rob Astorino, press 1. Andrew Cuomo, press 2. Or you're not sure yet, you're undecided, press 3. All right, one more question. Who's it going to be? Robert in West Babylon. How are you, Robert?
Hello, fine. How are you today? Thank you for taking my question.
Thank you.
My question is with the pension system in the state of New York, I feel it's a cesspool. I mean, I have no trouble with people having a pension, but it seems to me that they can boost their pension through overtime and all these little add-ons. People can join the pension system. And I go to my school board meetings, and the cost of the pension to the annual budget is growing astronomically. What is your plan to try and rein in some of these problems with the pension system?
Okay, a couple things. Those that are already in the pension system that work for state government or municipal government or have retired, their pensions cannot be touched, period. So let's talk about going forward. New hires, people that come on board whenever there are changes. I think that we should have an opportunity at the very least for the employee to choose for their own life if they prefer a defined benefit system, which is what we have, which basically means you're guaranteed this for life. Nothing can change. Your benefits can't change, which I disagree with, by the way. That's one of the reasons why our pensions are out of control, and counties like Nassau and Suffolk and Westchester and New York City are grappling with expenses that they can't meet because the pensions are going up like crazy. But I would add a defined contribution to the mix, which is what most of us have in the private sector, and even in governments around the country, where it's more market-based, more like just to simplify it, more like a 401k, where the employer puts in, the employee puts in, and over the long haul, you're going to be much better. In fact, we have that system. State University of New York employees have a defined contribution system, and they're doing very well. This governor had a chance when he was talking about pension reform to make some real changes, as other states have done very effectively. And he chose not to do it. He chose to take a baby step and just placate everybody. But we're drowning right now. The reason why your taxes keep going up is because these expenses keep going up from Albany. And there's no relief for 25 years. That's not helping all of us in schools and municipalities and counties that are just up to our nostrils right now in water. So I do agree that there should be some pension reform going forward, but we will not touch, nor can you touch, anyone who's already in the system today. All right? I'm going to take the last question, I think, from Fran from East Meadow. Fran, how are you? Fran?
Yeah.
Hi, Fran. How are you?
Hi, how are you, Rob?
Good. What's your question?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, what's your question, Fran?
Okay, the situation with the red light cameras in Nassau County that are all over the place.
I hate
what's your position on that?
I hate red light cameras. This is just plain and simple. It's a money grab. It's another way to raise money off the backs of taxpayers or drivers in this case. You know, they use it's trying to make school zones safer routine. But let's face it, red light cameras are going up, not just around schools, they're going up at intersections, and there is growing evidence that they don't make us safer. In fact, they cause more accidents. But the biggest thing, it's just a money grab by all different layers of government. And that's why, as I've said, New Yorkers are leaving this state in record numbers under this governor. 400,000 people have left in the last 4 years under Cuomo. And taxes keep going up, jobs are being lost, the economy is doing bad, and we've got one of the worst economic outlooks as a state. And that's why people are fleeing, because it's not only bad enough that we have the highest taxes, but then they nickel and dime you to death to make sure you leave this state. And the red light cameras, I've always hated them, and as governor, it's not something that I would look to expand in any way. So I hope that answers your question. I just want to thank everybody. I really appreciate it very, very much. I want to do this again and again, but I'm really asking you in the next 55 days to be involved somehow. If you do support us, please put a lawn sign or a bumper sticker on your car or donate some money. If you're undecided, please follow us, understand the issues, know what I did in Westchester by cutting taxes, and where we want to take this state. And if you're supporting Cuomo right now, I want you to give us a second look. I want you to really think about whether things have really improved in this state over the last 4 years, whether your taxes really have gone down, and whether or not the jobs are there. Give it a second look, and that's all I ask. So I really appreciate your time tonight. Have a wonderful night, and thanks again.